Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2001 horror film Jeepers Creepers. Now, before I go any further sharing my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Seth for requesting this video. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I'll try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, Jeepers Creepers is one of those films that honestly I do have some nostalgia for. I remember watching it for the first time with my dad when I was a teenager, and it was honestly a part of the handful of first horror films that I ever saw all the way through. So for that reason, I do get some fun out of it. It's not the only reason why I don't mind this movie, but it's definitely something that does play a factor. And even if I take that out, this is still a solid horror film. It's still a pretty good movie for what it is. But it's one of those things where I know I preach about separating the art from the artist, but in this film's case, it's difficult because the creeper itself is so tied into the writer and the director's depraved tendencies. And what do I mean by that? Victor Salva is a convicted child molester. This is the reality. And he was found guilty of it, of a crime that he committed on the set of a film that he directed called Clown House, where he molested the star of the film, at least one of the stars of the film. So yeah, he's a creep in real life, and due to his connections with people like Francis Ford Coppola in the industry, he found a way to get off and not serve his full time. And then after I think just like a few years, he wound up getting the job to direct Powder, and then that led to him getting opportunities like this. And what's frustrating is this is a really interesting and intriguing film when it comes to the horror genre, with the creeper itself being a creature and its mysterious origins, and how the film takes a typical sort of road trip and then turns it into a fairly unique kind of horror film. It's unfortunate because if you had someone else who was writing the movie, or someone else who was behind the camera who was not a former child molester, or someone who was convicted of such a crime, then you wouldn't have this stink on it. And that's what makes it hard for me to champion this film, even though there's a lot of things about it that I really like, because of Salva's involvement. And if people are able to separate the art from the artist in this instance, and they're able to do it in a way that's relatively easy, more power to them. And I honestly have no problem with that, because I know this film has a lot of fans, and I don't want to take that away from people who really like this film, despite the fact that the writer and director is a pervert. Let's just be honest, he's a pervert. And some of those perverted tendencies are in this script, with the creepers sniffing people's sweaty clothes, and even the whole like aspect of the creeper, peeping on people. It's just one of those things where it is kind of skeevy. And I know some people might argue that that's part of the reason why the Creeper is such a creepy and menacing and disturbing horror villain, because of the fact that its origins are so deeply tied into the mindset of a man who is legitimately depraved. But it's one of those things where, you could have maybe done that without having the depraved guy be the one that comes up with the character. I mean, there have been other characters in horror films that are creepers and peepers, and they aren't written by child molesters. That's it's an unfortunate thing, because there are a lot of things about this film that are legitimately good, including what Salva brings to the table with this film. But it's just hard for me to give the guy praise and acclaim, considering what he did on the set of Clown House. It really is. It's very difficult for me to do that. And I know some people might find that hypocritical because of the fact that I've been somebody who's been trying to preach about separating the art from the artist. But in this instance, to me personally, it's as if the artist himself was doing a painting or a portrait of some kind, and then right in the background, in plain sight, he's molesting a kid. It's very difficult to completely separate the art from the artist in this instance, because the art is so finely and so firmly connected to the artist's own depravity. That being said, I'm going to try to do my best. And Salva directed this, and the direction is actually pretty good. He did a good job. He did a good job directing the film with a low budget. I know that there were initial plans to end the film very differently, but the budget got cut fairly last minute, so Salva had to do a lot of last minute reworking and tweaking, cut things out, change things around. Maybe that's why the climax is kind of clunky, like the last 20 minutes, because a lot of stuff got cut out and they kind of had to come up with something on the fly. And that's why it feels very patchwork, because it is. But visually, it's got a fairly consistent look and tone to it. I like the way that he uses camera techniques and pans and zooms and traveling shots, and how he establishes a location, and how he works with close-ups and works with lighting and color, and all of the different things that are a part of admirable, or at least effective, directing. And did a good job keeping the cast in a position where they're able to still deliver very good performances despite less than ideal circumstances, because it was a miserable shoot, because they shot in the middle of the summer and it was just sweaty and it was not fun. And I give him credit for being able to handle that and still get these performers to really deliver and provide some genuinely good performances despite the circumstances. And yeah, it does have a certain creepy look to it, and a lot of that's attributed to Salva and his ability to really evoke such emotions from the audience, to make the audience unnerved and feel creeped out, and feel some real tension during some of the more tense sequences in the film. So yeah, the direction is quite good. It's just a shame that the director as a person is not the best, to say the least. And his script is also not that bad either. I like how it opens up with a typical kind of road trip between brother and sister, and then they see something on the side of the road, and then it turns into a nightmare that just gets progressively more and more crazy, and insane as the film goes on. It's a very creative script. There's a lot of creativity here, a lot of uniqueness. I like how it's inspired by a case that was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, the Dennis DePue case, where somebody was driving alongside the road in the middle of nowhere and saw somebody dump a body, and they decided to call the authorities and figure out what's going on with it. And they took that and then turned it into the inspiration for this film. And I think that's really cool because I'm a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries, and that case is legitimately one of the better cases that have been featured on the show. Definitely one of the more compelling and captivating ones. And that segment on that show is still very creepy to this day when it comes to the reenactment of the people driving alongside the road and then seeing this mysterious guy just dump a body down a drainage ditch. So I like how that's incorporated into the script. And I like the brother and sister. I really enjoy their dynamic. It's playful, it's witty, but there's also a lot of heart to it. Like, you really do buy that Trish and Derry really genuinely care for one another and love each other as siblings. In, a totally, sibling way. Not anything that's you know the opposite of that, or something that's a little bit too far when it comes to the way that they love one another. And once even the creeper is revealed, I like the fact that it's kind of a supernatural thing and it's not just some guy wearing a mask. That was refreshing, that it was actually a creature that was doing all these killings and was doing all of this. And even the build up prior to revealing the creeper is very effective. Like the whole cathedral of dead bodies in the creeper's underground lair that Derry discovers when he decides to go down the tube to try to help somebody. And that's stuff that's straight out of nightmares, and it's really well done and really creepy. And I even like the way that they incorporate the song Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those peepers? I even like that. And the police station sequence, I actually thought that was quite strong, especially the kill where the creeper rips the guy's heart out. But there's stuff that just makes me feel icky when it comes to this script. And it does. It ties into Salva's own depravity that just starts bubbling under the surface. It's like he can't help himself. He's got to inject some of that perversion into the screenplay. Like the stuff with the creeper sniffing clothes. You don't actually see the creeper sniff the clothes, but people mention that they saw the creeper sniff clothes. And the only reason why Derry is carrying around dirty laundry is for that reason. I don't buy, oh, he's doing it so he can give his mom something to do when he comes back to visit her from college. That's bullshit. That's ridiculous. No, it's only there as an excuse for Salva to inject his kink into the script. And even even the ending of the film, where the creeper, despite the fact that the final girl, Trish, she's willing to sacrifice herself and give herself up for the creeper still picks Derry, still picks the boy, which is what Salva would do. So it's just, and that's the thing. Picking the boy instead of the girl at the end, that does make it different. But the only reason why it's different is because of the director and his own depraved kinks. So it's like, it is. It's just one of those things where it just makes you feel just kind of gross when you really think about the creeper as a character, and you think about how things ultimately play out with this movie. And it's not nearly as bad or as obvious as a sequel, because that makes me feel even more uncomfortable, but it's still there under the surface. And you could argue it didn't even necessarily even need to be there to make it an effective horror film. And it's disappointing because it feels like a lot of that just kind of undoes all the good that Salva was providing with this script, with the character depth and making these two siblings likable, having moments where they will actually break the fourth wall, or at the very least acknowledge that what they're doing is dumb. And this is the kind of stuff that happens in horror films where somebody does the dumb thing and then dies. I like the fact that it has, some meta moments like that. And then I like how you think, oh, it's just going to be your typical, like, crazy guy in a mask who's driving around in this truck. But no, it's actually some kind of creature who eats different body parts and has a thing for sewing them together or sewing them back together, and as some kind of just disgusting art project. And a lot of that is really strong, effective stuff. But it's not just undone by the depravity, it's also undone by a certain moment in the script. And that's when the psychic lady shows up at the police station. When that happens, the tone shifts, and it shifts in a way where it feels like the film is going backwards. Like, it's not going forwards in terms of quality or maintaining its quality. It's going backwards because the tone is just so jarring with this psychic lady. And the whole stuff with her just feels kind of forced, or just not really that strong in general from a storytelling or a screenwriting perspective. It feels kind of convenient when it comes to uh, her psychic abilities and how it ties into the rest of the film and how it plays out. And like I mentioned earlier, that could have just been because of the fact that it was sort of a last minute thing that Salva had to deal with, because of the fact that his original ending had to be completely scrapped because it didn't have the money. But regardless, it's still not an effective part of the film, and it really does kind of bring it down. I don't like those scenes. I don't like the psychic lady. I don't like how the psychic lady is basically shoved in your face at this point. And it just feels very crammed in there. The ending is also not really that satisfying. It's another one of those sequel bait kind of endings where, oh, you think the creeper, is dead, but the creeper survives and escapes and takes the boy, and then the film ends with creeper winning. The creeper rips off Derry's face and holds it in front of the camera, so you can see through the slits of where his eyes are supposed to be. And I do appreciate that the story doesn't really meander around that much, even though it has a few moments like that. For the most part, it kind of stays on the right path. But yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's got a really good start, a really good beginning, very tense, very thrilling, with the whole stuff with the car, with the van chasing after them after they saw a guy in the van dump a body. And then even after that, there's a lot of genuine mystery and intrigue that keeps you invested and keeps it going. And the two leads are written in a way that really makes you sympathize with and care about them when it comes to their plight and making it out alive. And then the creeper is revealed to be this some kind of monster, maybe inspired by something like the urban legend of the Jersey Devil. And the police station scene is fun, as a nice bit of gore. Even prior to that, you have some decent moments of just not necessarily gore, but at least violence enough to the point where the film definitely has a very definitive edge to it. And then, the psychic lady, and then the climax just feels kind of clunky, it feels rushed, and then the movie is over. But yeah, the script, despite the fact that there are some rushed moments, there are some characters I don't really care for, it's a decent enough screenplay. But it's hard. It's incredibly difficult to just wipe away the Salva stink from it. It really is. And it's a shame because not only does the Salva stink permeate throughout the script, but it permeates throughout the entire film. So it just lingers around and affects the performances of the cast. Gina Phillips and Justin Long as Trish and Derry, who, in my opinion, are excellent. I think they're great. I thought the two of them had really good chemistry. You bought that they were brother and sister. I thought they had a lot of charisma. They were a lot of fun to watch. And I really did enjoy these two, and I really liked their performance in the film equally. I thought they both held their own very well. And then, of course, Jonathan Breck is the creeper, who's an intimidating, creepy presence in his own right. Um, not necessarily Giselle, played by Patricia Belcher, who played the psychic lady. I thought that performance is pretty stilted, pretty stiff, pretty bad, to be honest. Almost looked like something you'd see out of a cheap Hallmark movie. And then there's a few other people, but not really a whole lot. I know Victor Salva plays himself in one scene where he's a victim of the creeper. Um, and Eileen Brennan, who you might recognize, she's been in a lot of stuff. She plays the cat lady. That whole scene too was a little just it seemed like an excuse just to raise the body count, having the cat lady scene. But yeah, I mean, the two leads, Jonathan Breck, like all three of them do really solid, if not spectacular, jobs in their own right. So it's just a shame that you have that Salva stink that's just everywhere. And the cinematography by Don E. Fauntleroy, I thought that was also good. I don't think it was great, but it was good. It was good enough. The film definitely had a gritty look to it that tied into a lot of the film's mood and atmosphere very well. The editing by Ed Marks was actually pretty exemplary for the time, and really did add to a lot of the intensity throughout the film, and definitely made the tense sequences, like the opening scenes, all the more tense and all the more terrifying. And I even like the score by Bennett Salve. Like the score is actually pretty underrated. I don't think enough people talk about the music by Bennett Salve for this film. It almost sounded like something by Silvestri or some of the more established, well-known composers. It kind of had that sort of vibe to it. And one thing that I really liked about the score is how it incorporates what you think is the Creeper's horn on his van, but it's actually the score. The score is representing the horn and the blaring of the horn. And I thought that was really creative and really cool. So it's also a film that isn't that long. Like, it's 91 minutes, and that's without the end credits. So it's not what I would consider that boring of a movie, or that boring of a horror film. And yeah, when it comes to horror, it definitely does deliver the goods in a lot of different ways. With the tense, thrilling sequences in the beginning, with the chase and seeing the body being dumped, and then the just craziness of the cathedral of corpses, and then the creeper and his reveal, and then the other creepy, weird shit that the creeper does, like licking people and windows and all kinds of crazy, weird shit. How the creeper keeps coming even though you think it's dead, like it's the Terminator, and some really good practical effects for the most part, especially the makeup on Jonathan Breck as the creeper. And yeah, it's got a definite disturbing bit of mood and atmosphere. And I can see why Clive Barker, said something like this. For the time, for 2001. Yeah, it is one of the most stylish and, you know, creepier or creepiest horror films from that time. And I would say that it's one of the best horror films from the 2000s, and probably one of my favorites, even though it's not one that I'm going to watch over and over again because of the Salva stink. But it's still a film that I do like. See, that's the thing. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't like the film or the film should be canceled by everybody and everyone because of Salva and what he did and how his depraved tendencies are present in the script and with the character of the creeper in particular. I'm not going to do that because there are things in this that have nothing to do with any of that. Like Justin Long and uh, Gina Phillips, like those two, they didn't do anything wrong, so they don't deserve their careers to be tarnished by what Salva did and who he is. And the same thing goes for Jonathan Breck. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, despite everything that I've said about this film when it comes to what I call the Salva stank, I still recommend the movie. I do. I recommend checking it out. I do think that if you're a fan of like horror films, it's worth at least one watch. Um, but yeah, just keep the Salve stink in mind, and maybe try to put it into perspective in your own way. I know some people will just ignore it outright. Other people will be able to kind of compartmentalize it in their own way, but it is something that really does. It just stays there. It is. It's like a really bad odor that you just can't completely scrub away. You can't get rid of it. It's just there, no matter what you do. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Jeepers Creepers. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.